opportunities we need to grow in our careers.
Support for the Zest podcast comes from WUSF members and Adelaide Interiors, with a new location now open on Kennedy Boulevard, east of Habana Avenue in Tampa, offering lunch and learn events and featuring the Wellness Kitchen, where design meets well-being. Learn more at adelaide.com. New College of Florida is trying to acquire as much land as possible to expand its campus. It's part of the 10-year campus master plan to completely transform the school. The newly deemed conservative college is also hoping to acquire part of the University of South Florida. I'm Kathy Carter, and today on Florida Matters, live and local, we're looking deeper into this plan and how it could affect the university. And later, are you a punk rock fan? It is the 20th anniversary of a book highlighting the secret history of Jewish punk music in New York City. We'll be speaking with the author. Did you ever see a show at the famed CBGB's? Are you a punk rock fan? Call and let us know, 813-755-6562. And you can email us at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. All this and more, plus your calls on Florida Matters Live and Local. But first, these headlines.
Live from NPR News in New York City, I'm Dwalisa Kautel. Across the country, thousands of immigrants without legal status are not showing up to their scheduled court appearances, fearing arrest. NPR's Jimena Bustillo reports those absences are leading to a rise in deportation orders.
We found that in nearly every immigration court in the country, more people are getting these orders, saying they basically didn't show. That's early analysis unique to NPR that relied on data from January through November. It's more than 50,000 people in that time, nearly 3 times the number from the last fiscal year, and it's a big jump from trends of prior years. The spike is really noticeable starting in summer around June, and that lines up with anecdotal observations I've been hearing.
NPR's Jimena Bustillo. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro is criticizing the U.S. for its efforts to intercept sanctioned oil tankers off the country's coast. As NPR's Carrie Kahn reports, the Trump administration says the tankers are operating illegally.
So far, the U.S. has either pursued or intercepted 3 oil tankers suspected of violating U.S. sanctions. Maduro has called the U.S. actions high seas piracy and profiteering. Venezuela's vice president says it has asked the UN and other governments to intervene. In a social media post, the foreign ministry says Iran has offered its full solidarity to confront the U.S. actions that, quote, violate international laws. Maduro continues to flood Venezuelan state TV and social media accounts with videos decrying the U.S. and plays in heavy rotation his pleas in English that Venezuela just wants peace, not war. He's printed the slogan on red MAGA-style hats he dons at rallies filled with supporters. Carrie Kahn, NPR News, Rio de Janeiro.
Pope Leo says he plans to follow the agenda of his predecessor, Pope Francis, to make the Catholic Church more inclusive. NPR's Ruth Sherlock reports the pontiff delivered his first Christmas address to cardinals at the Vatican.
Pope Leo remembered in his address his predecessor, Pope Francis.
La sua voce profetica.
His prophetic voice, his pastoral style, and his rich teachings have defined the path of the Church in these years, Leo said, encouraging us to place God's mercy at the centre. He said the Church should be welcoming to all and caring for the poor. Francis, who led the 1.4 billion member Catholic Church for 12 years, had been known to use these annual Christmas addresses to scathingly critique the work of his cardinals. Leo, who is more diplomatic, was much gentler. He warned officials only not to allow rigidity or ideology to slow progress for the Church. Ruth Sherlock, NPR News.
Bowen Yang has left Saturday Night Live mid-season. You're listening to NPR News from New York City.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Heifer International, where people can donate animal gifts to families living in poverty. Whether it's a goat, chicken, or cow, each gift is intended to help families earn a sustainable income. Heifer.org/NPR.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7 News. I'm Sky LeBron. International student enrollment is down at colleges and universities across the U.S. But as WUSF's Nancy Guan reports, some Florida schools are seeing a decline while others are bucking the trend.
The number of new international students coming to study in the U.S. declined about 17% this fall. Miriam Feldblum is with the President's Alliance on Higher Education and Immigration. She says the drop is partly due to federal policies restricting student visas and travel from certain countries.
What we're doing now is actually discouraging them to stay, deterring them to come.
At the University of South Florida, the number of new international students declined by 266 from a year earlier. Florida State University saw 76 fewer students. However, the University of Central Florida and the University of Tampa saw more international students enroll. Meanwhile, experts like Feldblum say enrollment trends will be clearer next fall. Nancy Guan, WUSF 89.7 News.
Clearwater is the latest community looking at adding a sports complex. The St. Pete Catalyst reports Porter Development is looking to build on the Landings, a publicly owned golf course adjacent to the Clearwater Executive Airport. The project would include 13 multi-purpose fields, a pickleball complex, water attractions, sand volleyball courts, and a fitness and wellness center. Porter's initial plan included a 5,000-seat stadium, but their revised plan features a 1,500-seat open-air arena. Voters rejected a similar Porter project on a former Largo landfill in 2022. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers' playoff hopes are hanging on by a thread after their loss to the Carolina Panthers on Sunday. The Panthers moved to 8-7 on the season, while the Bucs fell to 7-8. Carolina can wrap up the NFC South Division title next Sunday with a win over Seattle and a Buccaneers loss to Miami. But if both teams win or both teams lose, the Panthers would need to beat Tampa Bay again on the road in Week 18 on January 4th. You're listening to WUSF 89.7 News. I'm Sky LeBron.
I'm Mark Schreiner, WUSF's Assistant News Director. I hope you're able to enjoy the holidays with your loved ones, and I wish you a Happy New Year.
At WUSF, support comes from the people who listen, like you. Also, Seitenbacher, with a new web shop. Healthy muesli, cold-pressed oils, and vegetable broth mix delivered to your door from right here in Tampa Bay. Details at Seitenbacher.com. Seitenbacher. Seitenbacher.
You are listening to Florida Matters, live and local. We're broadcasting from the Doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio at WUSF in Tampa. I'm Kathy Carter. I am filling in for Matthew Petty today. Well, before 2023, New College of Florida was seen as a public liberal arts college with prestige. The school was progressive and a little bit quirky. Today, the school is morphing into the conservative education hub of the South. After his arrival, the current president of the college, Richard Corcoran, laid out a 10-year plan to expand the school in both physical land and in its enrollment, too. His plan also included getting rid of classes like gender studies to create an environment that, quote, welcomes intellectual exploration and vigorous scholarly debate, end quote. Now, to expand the campus, the college has tried to acquire land from the Sarasota-Bradenton International Airport, and the school is also hoping to acquire the USF Sarasota Manatee campus. How do you feel about these proposals for New College? We would love to hear from you. 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Or you can email us right now at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Well, joining us to talk more about the New College campus master plan is Alice Herman, an investigative reporter at Suncoast Searchlight. Alice, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, tell us, why is New College trying to expand the school? What will the land they're trying to get be used for?
Sure. So the proposal to transfer University of South Florida Sarasota Manatee, that campus, to New College was just unveiled a week ago in Governor Ron DeSantis's budget proposal, and President Corcoran of New College has signaled his support for the transfer as well. Essentially, the idea would be for New College to expand its athletic facilities, as well as to take over some of the dorm space that students who had been displaced from New College dorms due to problems with mold, they'd be able to have more space. So that would essentially be that's what New College would stand to gain from that transfer. The school would also, though, take on millions of dollars of debt, because the transfer of facilities from USF would also mean the transfer of facility debt. And reporting that your fantastic reporter Carrie Sheridan has done shows that about more than $50 million of debt would be transferred.
Right. Now, you talked about the lack of dorm space at New College. We know students are at hotels and at rooms at USF Sarasota Manatee right now, and a lot of the land they're trying to acquire, as you mentioned, going to athletics. They're really kind of beefing up, trying to get more student athletes in. Walk us through the New College Master Plan and what has happened so far, and what are they trying to do next?
Sure. So the master plan is essentially a 10-year plan for how the college plans to use its facilities and geographic footprint. The plan itself looks at its current geographic footprint, but the Board of Trustees voted to pass the master plan at about the same time that DeSantis proposed handing over the USF campus. So among other things, the master plan proposes transferring a couple of residential properties to New College, and it also proposes different buildings on campus. There were some concerns from the public that we heard during the Board of Trustees meeting over the use of and conversion of native habitat to facilitate different kinds of building projects. And there was also some talk about the creation of a sidewalk that would connect the Ringling Museum to New College, which wouldn't in itself transfer the Ringling to New College, but I think for some it signaled this continual interest in connecting those campuses and connecting those spaces. And as we know, last year, the DeSantis also attempted to transfer the Ringling Museum to New College, and that didn't work out during the last legislative session. Lawmakers didn't ultimately follow up with that proposal, but of course it could always be introduced in the next legislative session.
So USF Sarasota Manatee, how did they become part of this plan? Wasn't there a lot of pushback from the community last year when this first came up?
Yeah, there was a lot of pushback from faculty and staff and other stakeholders. USF, though, did have some talks with New College behind the scenes about transferring the campus over. It ultimately, similar to the proposal to take over the Ringling, didn't pass. But DeSantis is again trying to make this happen, and again, it seems that what USF would stand to gain would simply be getting rid of some of its debts and having those taken on by New College, which comes at a kind of interesting time because New College is increasingly relying on state appropriations to fund its operations. And Florida's Department of Government Efficiency recently released a report that New College and Corcoran critics sort of seized onto as evidence of its spending, and the way that it has the way that New College's spending dwarfs the spending of other institutions in the state university system. So there's sure to be more pushback this year, although it's unclear to me at this point what the position of USF is in this whole project and proposal.
Right. I think that one of the members of the Board of Trustees says it's up to the legislature, but this actually isn't being introduced by the legislature this time around. It's actually in the governor's budget. Well, for those who aren't that familiar with that area of Sarasota, can you explain where is USF Sarasota Manatee in proximity to New College of Florida?
Absolutely. So New College of Florida is just south of USF Sarasota Manatee, and then both lie right along Sarasota Bay. It's a really beautiful camp. Both campuses are lie right alongside this really beautiful bayfront property. And then the Ringling is just south of New College. So you have these three cultural/academic institutions that are occupying just like a really gorgeous and probably highly valued space alongside Sarasota Bay.
Well, if you're just joining us, we're speaking with Alice Herman about the campus master plan at New College of Florida. She's an investigative reporter at Suncoast Searchlight. If you would like to weigh in, you can call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Now, Alice, if USF loses that campus in Sarasota, Manatee, what do you think that will mean for the faculty and staff? Is there any plan for that so far, or what will happen to all of the students and the faculty?
So in the budget proposal, if this were to pass, students who are currently enrolled at USF would not be displaced, and they would have 4 years to graduate. It says, or within a reasonable time to graduate. However, incoming at the time that this is passed, if it does pass, any new students, from my reading of it, would it's not clear to me that any newly enrolled students at USF in the fall of 2026 would be able to stay there. I don't know what the status would be for example, a senior in high school right now who's applying to college and is contemplating going to USF Sarasota Manatee. That seems like it's more up in the air. And I'm also not sure what would happen to the faculty and staff who are there. This is a facilities transfer, but obviously once the facilities are controlled by New College, what happens inside them presumably would also be at the discretion of New College of Florida.
Yeah. Well, we actually have somebody on the line who would like to weigh in. Aaron says colleges should not be conservative or liberal. Aaron, can you expand on that?
Yeah, I don't think it's right for politics to enter in to colleges. It's just like politics enters in thinking they know more about science than scientists do. A public university or college shouldn't be labeled as or engineered to be conservative or liberal. That's for private colleges. If they want to be more conservative, I think it's strictly should be private colleges, not public colleges.
Right. Very good point. Thank you so much for your call. We appreciate you weighing in. We'd like to speak with John now, who's on the line. He says colleges should have to share their master plan. Why so, John?
Did you mean Jono?
Sure, Jono, go. Yeah, Jono, please. Why do you say that colleges should have to share their master plan? Can you speak more to that?
Well, what I was trying to say is that a major function of the campus master plan is to communicate to the host communities what changes might take place in the next 10 years that would affect those governments' ability to provide services. And we know both historically and currently that New College is interested in acquiring both the USF Sarasota Manatee property and the FSU Ringling property, and yet neither of those are identified in the campus master plan as properties that they intend to acquire, even though there's a Board of Governors regulation that requires the college to have a study that shows what areas might meet their existing or future needs. So we can't figure out why they're telling the Board of Governors in December they're not mentioning any land acquisition desires, and then they're going to go to the legislature in January and tell them they want all this additional land. So that makes sort of a mockery of the campus master plan.
Okay, we're going to go to Mike now. He says he is a professor, and no one wants this. A professor where, Mike? Which college are you at?
At USF,
Okay.
I'm an adjunct instructor. That's my title. I've been there since 2010. Let me be blunt. None of us who teach at USF or the students have any interest in New College taking over. I respect New College, their overpaid president. What is it, $70,000 a year per student versus our $10,000? This is this is a real estate takeover. It's all it is.
We have to end there, Mike, but thank you for weighing in on that. We appreciate it. We have been speaking with Alice Herman, an investigative reporter at Suncoast Searchlight. Alice, thank you. Thank you. We'll be reading more of your stories on this issue because there's lots more to report. Coming up, lots of rockets took flight from Florida this year. Find out why. And when we return on Florida Matters Live and Local, we'll find out more. So please stay with us. Enjoy the warmth and magic of this holiday season.
Still holding on to a car you don't drive anymore? Give it new purpose this season. Donate your car, truck, or boat to WUSF and help keep trustworthy local journalism strong. It's easy, and it may mean a tax deduction. Call 866-WUSF-CAR or visit WUSF.org.
Sarasota Opera presents its 2026 Winter Opera Festival featuring Puccini's La Bohème, Floyd's Susanna, and more. These performances run February 14th through March 29th. Tickets at sarasotaopera.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Kathy Carter, in for Matthew Penny. Remember in the 1960s when rocket launches were as big as movie premieres, and the shuttle program drew really big crowds until 2011? Well, the space program didn't go away, just evolved. In 2025 alone, more than 250 rockets launched into orbit, over half from the company SpaceX. 109 of those launches have happened on Florida's Space Coast, with an expected total of 136 by the end of 2025. And joining us to talk more about these launches and why so many are happening is Brendan Byrne. He hosts the Are We There Yet podcast. The weekly episodes share the latest developments in space exploration, from NASA missions to commercial spaceflight. And he's also the assistant news director at Central Florida Public Media. Brendan, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, if you have questions about space travel, or if you've seen one of the rocket launches this year, we want to hear about it. 813-755-6562, or you can send us an email to FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. So, Brendan, Florida has been home to rocket launches since 1950. Has it been steady ever since?
There have been, as you mentioned in the lead, there have been some times of lots and lots of launches, and then lulls in between programs. The space shuttle program was designed to launch a lot of astronauts and hardware into orbit, but then was retired in 2011. There was another lull there, and then we started to see the prominence of the commercial space program, in part due to NASA's investment in that, and commercial companies like SpaceX stepping up to really start launching a lot of stuff into orbit since then. So we are in the most flights we've ever seen on the Space Coast, and that will certainly continue to grow if SpaceX has its way.
Besides your amazing podcast, what led to the decline in media attention for space travel over the past decade or so?
I think it's very routine at this point. And you saw that through historically through other programs, even the Apollo moon missions. After that, Apollo 11, the first lunar lander, you definitely saw public interest wane because it wasn't new or novel anymore. You saw that with the space shuttle program, right? It became very routine as well, until it wasn't, right? Until we had those two tragedies of space shuttle missions. The same thing is happening on the Space Coast now. Pretty much you can look east and see a rocket almost every other day at this point. So why would you? It's normal now. But I will say there are missions that are bringing people out to the public viewing places, people that are listening in and reading for coverage on. We still continue to launch human crews from the Space Coast. SpaceX is launching missions every 6 months to the International Space Station for NASA. And there's also some private missions that are heading to the International Space Station and even beyond, right, to polar orbit. All of that is happening here. That seems to draw a crowd, and that seems to draw attention as well, because anytime a human leaves the planet, it's pretty interesting. Right?
So what is different about the launches we see today? You mentioned SpaceX. What are these missions for exactly?
These are largely missions to launch SpaceX's Starlink constellation. So essentially, SpaceX is a plan to blanket the globe with these tiny satellites that will relay broadband internet anywhere in the world, right? In order to do that, they need a lot of those launches. SpaceX is hoping to get 167 launches by the end of this year. That includes both here in Florida, and they have another launch facility in the Vandenberg Space Force Station in California. Of those 167 planned launches, 165 launches that have actually happened, over 120 of them have been these Starlink missions. So they're sending large batches up. There's about 3,000 that have launched just this year, essentially adding to this building this constellation so that you can get internet access wherever you are. I mean, you may have heard friends and family that have access to Starlink. It's used in remote areas, rural areas, people who are traveling on their RVs. Some airliners have it. The military's been using it. It's a really powerful tool to get internet wherever you may be, but it takes a lot of these satellites. So that was a very long-winded answer to your question. But yes, it's predominantly SpaceX launching these batches of Starlink satellites into space.
Yeah, and Jeff Bezos also involved in the space race. What do you make of the celebrities and some of the wealthy people going to space?
It's interesting. That is the future of what is going to be what we call a life in low Earth orbit, right? The International Space Station is up there now. We're very familiar with that. But the International Space Station is planned to be retired by 2030. So commercial companies are going to have to step in and fill the gap. And in order to do that, they have to show that there is, some financial gain for them to have a commercial space station in orbit. So companies like Axiom Space, they are launching people to the International Space Station. They're launching private citizens. They're also launching government astronauts that are not part of the big agencies like NASA or the Canadian Space Agency or Japanese Space Agency. So they're able to get them up there. And then with Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin, we saw quite a few celebrities that have launched on that as well. But, you keep doing that, you start lowering the cost of access to space, and hey, maybe one day you and I can, take a ride with Jeff up to suborbit.
Well, besides the private companies, last week President Trump signed an executive order calling for Americans' return to the moon by 2028 on the government end. So tell us about Artemis II and its role in all of this.
This is a very, very critical mission for the United States to get humans back to the moon. This will be the first time we would be back to the moon since the end of the Apollo program, which was 1972. Artemis II is launching, could launch as early as February of next year, although there's still a lot of work to be done there. But they will not land on the moon. Instead, this is a crew of 4. 3 U.S. astronauts and 1 Canadian astronaut that will kind of do a lunar flyby, a la Apollo 8, and really test out the systems of the Orion space capsule, which is going to take them there. The life support system, the radiation shielding, the heat shield to bring them back, and really stress test the Orion spacecraft, because the following mission, Artemis 3, is the one that is going to land humans on the moon. So all eyes are on Apollo 2. That is a very, very critical mission, launching as early as February. Artemis. Artemis 2. Artemis 1 launched a few years back on an uncrewed mission in the middle of the night. It was absolutely gorgeous to see this massive rocket launch the spacecraft that was bound for the moon. But it'll be definitely interesting to see humans on board this next flight.
Absolutely. So in about the 30 seconds we have left, I'm a terrible Floridian because I've never seen a launch from the Florida Space Coast. Do you have some advice on how I can get into it or what I should do if I want to see one of these?
Just look east. You can follow. There's plenty of places that have launch schedules. Go there. If you can come to the Space Coast, go visit one of the beaches. Playa Linda is great to see it. There's also Space View Park. And just go and look and take it in. You don't see a rocket launch, you feel a rocket launch. So be ready for that, those vibrations and those bright lights.
Okay, you're making it sound very tempting. We've been talking about rocket launches in 2025 and the commercial Nature of Space Travel with Brendan Byrne. He is the host of Are We There Yet? It's a great podcast, and he's also the assistant news director at Central Florida Public Media. Brendan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Up next, if you love a good mocktail, you're going to want to come back. We're speaking to a local non-alcoholic bottle shop owners, 2 of them, about their 2nd annual Dry Festival. You're listening to Florida Matters Live and Local. More to come after this.
On the next Fresh Air, filmmaker Craig Brewer, the director behind Hustle and Flow, Footloose, and Dolomite Is My Name, is back with a new film about a Milwaukee couple who turned their love of performing into a Neil Diamond tribute band. It's called Song Sung Blue. Join us.
Me and you are subject to the blues now and then.
Need a playlist that gets you in the holiday spirit? Go to WUSFjazz.org to find hours of jazz from artists like Malucha, Nate Najar, and Jeff Rupert. WUSFjazz.org.
For 26 years, neighbors have helped neighbors through Season of Sharing, presented by Community Foundation of Sarasota County. Learn how you can change someone's life and make a difference with a tax-deductible gift at cfsarasota.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Kathy Carter. Well, abstaining from alcohol has become more of a lifestyle for so many people across America. Non-alcoholic beer purchases increased 22% from December 2023 to November 24, and that's according to the group NC Solutions. But still, at times, being sober can make you feel left out socially. One local couple has worked hard to create opportunities for sober social connections, ensuring everyone is able to have a very good time. The High and Dry Festival is a celebration of functional drinks created for people who are abstaining from alcohol, sober curious, or simply just want to focus on your wellness. The festival is in January and features over 50 functional drink brands. That ranges from cannabis-infused elixirs to blends designed to help the body cope with stress. And joining us to talk more about the festival is Caitlin and Michael Smith. They are the creators of the High and Dry Festival. So are you curious about the festival or the sober life in general? And if you're doing Dry January coming up shortly, do you need some advice on how to stick to it? Well, then call in 813-755-6562. That is 813-755-6562, or you can email us at FloridaMatters at WUSF.org. So, Michael, we will start with you. What exactly is a functional drink?
So a functional drink is something that has an ingredient that's either going to give you energy or help you socialize or calm down. It's something more than just juice and seltzer water or something like that. And we can do that via herbs or mushrooms, things like adaptogens and nootropics. And it can be anywhere from like a seltzer or a soda, or we can even mimic the flavor of a cocktail if you still want to have that experience like you're part of the party still.
And you own a bottle shop. What are some of the other ventures that you have outside, Caitlin, of the High and Dry Festival? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so we are blessed to be in the great city of St. Pete and in the Tampa Bay area. So how we first got started was doing farmers markets and festivals. So trying to get out there within the community, doing a lot of local collaborations with yoga studios, and the Pinellas Run Club has been a huge advocate of ours. So just trying to find people that are, making that choice for themselves and being able to collaborate within the community to get a bigger reach.
Now, tell us a little bit more about what people can expect if they stop by your shop.
Yeah, so I would say give yourself at least a half hour. There's a lot of layers. It can be definitely overwhelming, but our staff is well educated and there to, guide you and answer any questions. But it's really just being patient with yourself and figuring out what your own combination is, or what, like Mike mentioned, whether you need some energy to help the brain through the day, or sleep is our number one request. So it's just really zoning in on what do you want from your drink, which is a really cool thing that we're there.
Okay, so I'm a terrible sleeper. What would you recommend to me?
Yeah, so if you're looking more on the cannabis side, I would definitely lean towards a higher CBN. Helps you not wake up as much. So we have a couple elixirs there, and then one of our favorites that's actually going to be at the festival is Drome. That one's going to be more with like lion's mane, some maple syrup. Kind of mimics more of an old-fashioned flavor, but just anything to let the body calm down. It's all about that ritual of woosah.
Michael, we've had you on the show before. Can you give us a reminder of why you both chose the non-alcoholic lifestyle?
Yeah. So I am 5 years sober from alcohol. And when we left the Pacific Northwest, I was in the hemp industry myself. We traveled the U.S. and we just saw that these options were starting to come up, but there was nowhere to go to get these options. Really, they were living in liquor stores, and that's the last place I want to go to. And Caitlin uses functional medicine for various reasons. So when we landed in St. Pete, we just felt like it was the time. We started doing markets, really, and people were like, hold on, where's your store? And from there, we're like, all right, well, it's at one store, a year later, a second store. And then we're like, how do we taste all of this in one shot? Because there's just so many options. So I miss beer fests. And I miss being able to go around and taste a bunch all in a couple hours. So here we are in year 2 of the High and Dry Festival.
So, tell us a little bit more about the High and Dry Festival. It's coming up. What can people expect?
Yeah, so we have 75 brands coming in. Essentially, you get a shot glass and you're able to go around, and we've sectioned the festival out just like we do the store. So you have your cannabis section, your mushroom section, your functional, your dry, and then you can go around and meet some of the makers. We have a lot of them actually coming in. We have education stations as well, where it's not necessarily about tasting the drinks, but rather putting your hands on lion's mane, reishi, learning about the minor cannabinoids. What's the difference between hemp and weed? What's kanna? That's another big herb out there right now that's kind of help boosting your mood, your serotonin and dopamine. So it's all about putting plants over pills. So we're going to have some local music, a local DJ, some food. So it's going to be a good time.
All right. Yeah. Second year. So obviously the first year was successful enough that you've decided to do it again.
Yes. Year 1 was learn. Will even work. And now this is really honing in.
All right. Well, if you have any questions, you want to weigh in, we're speaking with Caitlin and Michael Smith, the creators of the High and Dry Festival that's coming up in January. Perfect time for it as dry. January is just ahead. You can call in 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Caitlin, are there any rules for the festival? Do you have to be 21 and over?
You do have to be 21 and over. We actually have designated driver tickets available as well. So if you are someone who's not looking to consume, we still want to have everybody get home safe and sound. But I would say, just main thing is you got to be over 21. We want to make sure everybody has a great time.
And I understand you collaborate with some other small businesses in St. Pete. How does that work?
We do. So luckily at the festival, we are honored to have some sponsors join us. So we have Robinson MD. They will be at our Wellness Village, as well as the Falconetti Therapy. And also we have Astro Bliss, which is a local Tampa Bay company as well. And then a new drink lineup, which is our VIP sponsor, is Last Rep. So super excited to, again, have this community continue growing and join us in on the festival.
Now, Michael, where would you suggest starting for the sober curious? It's likely not as simple as just not ordering non-alcoholic drinks when you go out.
Yeah. When someone comes into our store, even the big divide is, do you want to even touch hemp first or not? Because the hemp part is going to give you like a slight buzz.
Gotcha.
If you don't, from there, it's really going back to that definition of function. Do we want function or flavor? Do we want it just to taste like my whiskey, or do I actually want it to calm down at the end of the night? And then from there, it's kind of getting down to like the potency and how strong do we want it to be, right? So like Caitlin was mentioning earlier with sleep, you can go into like CBN, you can go into like reishi mushroom, you can go into like, we have drinks that have tryptophan in it, just like why turkey makes you a little tired. So it's really just finding what kind of hits your palate first. If you are going to go into anything that's infused, low and slow is the game. Mm-hmm. Everyone has a different reaction to it. Some people just are so sensitive that just a little bit. So we definitely say low and slow is the way to go.
You've mentioned mushrooms a couple times and lion's mane, and I am hearing a lot about mushroom elixirs and nootropics. All right, so we talked a little bit about the cannabis infused. What are nootropics? Why mushrooms?
Yeah, nootropics are essentially anything that's brain foods. So you have things like amino acids, L-theanine, 5-HTP, GABA. Functional mushrooms can also be nootropic. So lion's mane is great for the brain, cognitive function, memory. They're using it to fight Alzheimer's disease. Cordyceps will be your caffeine replacement. So we have a lot of energy drinks out there that have that lion's mane cordyceps combo, and that'll replace your Red Bull, your Monster. It doesn't necessarily have to have the caffeine in there to give you energy. As we go into more nighttime drinks, that's where we lean into something like reishi mushroom, which is going to open up your lungs and kind of help calm down. Now, things that are nootropics can also be adaptogens. Adaptogens help you adapt to stress. So it's really just actions of these herbs and these ingredients that create these classifications. And it's really a boom right now, especially in the younger Gen Z, trying to get off meds. You can have a delicious drink and still get that same type of effect.
Well, if you have any questions about what you're hearing about nootropics and cannabis-infused drinks, you can call 813-755-6562, or you can email us right now at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Caitlin, I'm curious, people might be as well. What are we talking price-wise for some of these drinks? Is it similar to buying a beer or more expensive, less?
Yeah, I say that it's comparable. I think that especially at our shop, you can come in and buy a single drink. Your NA beers could be at $3.99 upwards to, like, if you wanted a specialty beer. Even Delirium has a non-alcoholic beer now. It's when you get more into the spirits and the functional spirits and the cannabis spirits where the price ticket goes up a little bit higher, just because you're paying for the milligram, you're paying for a stronger effect, but still very comparable. I mean, some of the whiskey bottles out there are pretty steep, so I would say, very comparable, but you're doing your body well, so.
Another term we hear a lot these days, I think even there's a song about it, California sober. What exactly, Michael, is California sober?
Cali sober is where you still consume cannabis or anything that's natural, but just not alcohol. So that's why I say when I'm sober from alcohol. That sometimes can be misconstrued and kind of turn the tide when it comes to being a sober place versus a place that we have alternatives to. We don't necessarily knock alcohol. We just say that there's alternatives out there.
Yeah, well, you shared that that you were sober from alcohol. Can you share a little bit more about that journey and how you're doing now and how you're feeling and why it's been a lifestyle that you've come to embrace?
Yeah, I mean, they say when you really want to make a change, make it your complete lifestyle. So making it even my career and really helping out others. And I think that this has really turned into one of those things where on a weekly basis, we're thanked from our community for either helping themselves or helping a family member. So I'm not at a point now where I necessarily get triggered even from having an NA beer. And that's one thing we say right away. If you're coming in and you did have an issue and you don't want to taste that, tell us right away. Well, we have plenty of options that won't even give you that thought. But sometimes it's you're stopping alcohol for other reasons, just by choice. And so you can still have that pleasure of having that whiskey, that tequila. And it's real bourbon and real tequila. They just burn off the alcohol. So it's not like we're imitating it. The industry has really grown far from there. And what I really like seeing over the last 2 years, and the big change in the market now is your alcohol distributors are now carrying these options. So you're starting to see it in your bar. So even though you don't see it on the menu, ask, because they have it. All they got to do is add it to the same Bud Light truck that's coming. It can now bring them these options, right? So when I first stopped drinking, I lost my social life in a sense.
Yeah.
I was a brewery hopper. I went on vacation. What brewery am I going to? But now that these options are out there, I can go out and partake and socialize and not feel isolated anymore.
Yeah, which is what the High and Dry Festival is, one way that people can do that. What are your goals, Caitlin, for the festival this year?
Yeah, I think it's this year is definitely bigger and larger. We have more brands signed up. So I think it's just making people aware that the community is out there, especially for Dry January. This year we have the opportunity of hosting it at the Coliseum. So very honored for having that history there. But I think just a really good way to kick off the first weekend in Dry January.
And what do you hope people who attend will get out of attending the High and Dry Festival?
I think that there's a shift in the industry, and that more mindful drinking is ahead, and that there's so many options within this industry. As we mentioned, we're all about finding your flow. So I think that it'll open up a book of worms for a lot of people, and hopefully they'll be excited to take on Dry January and make the change from there.
Well, it sounds like a great opportunity, especially given that there was a Gallup poll recently that only 54% of Americans now drink alcohol by choice, and Gen Z even less. So to have these options, terrific. Well, we've been speaking with Caitlin and Michael Smith. They are the founders of the High and Dry Festival and owners of Urban Flow, a non-alcoholic bottle shop in St. Pete. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, the little-known connection between the New York punk rock music scene and Judaism. You're listening to Florida Matters, live and local. More to come after this.
I'm Scott Tong. Our go-to book expert, podcaster Tracy Thomas, shares her year-end book list, including Addie Kitchen's debut novel, Dominion.
What I loved about this one is it is so rooted in the place. It feels so uniquely Mississippi. It is funny. It is smart.
Tracy's whole list, next time, here and now.
Holidays are all about sharing, and at the Zest Podcast, we're sharing stories that celebrate Florida's rich and flavorful food scene. From Cuban sandwiches in Tampa to key lime pie in the Keys, we dive into the people and traditions that make our state's table one of a kind. Join us for conversations with local chefs, farmers, home cooks, and other folks who bring sunshine to every season. So whether you're prepping a feast, road tripping across the state, or just relaxing after one too many desserts, let the Zest add a taste of Florida to your life. You can listen wherever you get your podcasts or at thezestpodcast.com. Happy holidays from all of us at WUSF, your home for local stories with flavor.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Kathy Carter. Well, when you think of religious music, punk rock probably isn't the first thing that comes to mind. But our next guest, Stephen Bieber, wrote the book on the intersection of Jewish culture and the pioneers of punk, The Heebie-Jeebies at CBGB's. A Secret History of Jewish Punk traces the bands and others who coalesced around this Jewish-owned punk mecca. Stephen, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And you can join us too. Do you have a memory you want to share? Were you ever at CBGB in the late 1970s? 813-755-6562 is the number to tell us all about it. That's 813-755-6562. Or email us at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. First of all, Stephen Bieber, how did you come up with the idea for this book?
You know, it's funny. I think I had the title before I had the idea. But it was a slightly different title. And I was going to do a book about Jews and rock. And I started looking and I realized, it shouldn't have been a surprise, but surprisingly, New York was the center of Jewish culture and the center of Jewish rock. And in fact, the only real rock movement to come out of New York, which is strange, considering, it's the cultural center for the country, is punk. And it's inherently Jewish in many ways, in my opinion. And so, it just wasn't just the people being Jewish, although I started to notice more and more folks who I had followed as a fan, with their stage names. I didn't realize that they were Jewish. And once I started to notice that, then I started thinking about all the references to Nazis and even to Jewish references within the songs themselves. Sometimes it all kind of fell in place and, gave me the idea for the book.
Gotcha. Well, in your book, you write that punk was primarily a movement led by young, middle-class Jews from the outer boroughs of Queens and Brooklyn, perhaps most notably Jeffrey Ross Hyman and Tamash Erdei, otherwise known as Joey and Tommy Ramone.
Exactly. Yeah. Tommy is the great unknown, I think, in the whole story because he kept his Jewishness secret. He was an immigrant from Hungary. His parents had survived the Holocaust only because they had the help of friends who were not Jewish. And they immigrated to the United States, and Tommy was understandably so a little bit paranoid about talking about being Jewish. And he took that kind of conception of himself and recruited these other guys to be in the band. He was the manager originally. He kind of had the idea for the band, and he saw Johnny as his golem. He told me, the big kind of guy that acted out on all his rage because Tommy was a little guy, and Joey as being, he had to be the lead singer. The other guys in the band were like, why Joey? He's a freak. And he said, that's the idea. And I hate to say it, but I'm Jewish, so I think I can say it. Joey is not just sort of unusual looking, if you want to say freakish, but he looked like a caricature of a Jew in Der Stürmer, the Nazi newspaper. He was just hook-nosed, sort of looked underfed and kind of like, Kafka's, Roach and Cockroach and the Metamorphosis. So, yeah, I think both of them are just essential in that play within the band between those two and the other two. Dee Dee had a German mother and a American serviceman father who had married her while he was there and had a very complicated relationship with Germany. Kind of identified with it, kind of hated it. And so all of these tensions within the band were the kind of epitome of what was going on in that corner of the rock world in general. And my overall theory about punk and Jewishness is that really punk is the reaction to the Holocaust by the first generation to come of age in its shadow, after it. So, yeah, maybe I'm giving you a longer answer than you want, but
let's go back. Let's go to the club part of it, the title of your book. CBGB was that legendary New York City music club. It was the epicenter for American punk and new wave in the 70s. Its owner, Hilly Crystal, also Jewish, by the way, talked to us about how crucial that club was to the beginnings of punk rock.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Hillel Crystal grew up on a Jewish socialist collective in New Jersey. And he started this club, CBGB's Country, Bluegrass, and Blues. So it was like a biker bar for those kind of Americana genres, and it didn't really make any money. So he started just allowing these kids who wanted to perform, but he said, if you perform, you have to perform your own songs. And it wasn't that typical then. It was more cover bands were more typical. And he said, had been a opera singer, and he wanted to give everyone a chance to do it themselves. DIY is the big rallying cry of punk, anti-corporate, bring it back to the people. And that was Hilly. He was like a socialist, enacted like like Marx for all the, the performers there at CBGB's, and all the bands started there.
Yeah. Well, if you're just tuning into Florida Matters, by the way, we are speaking with Stephen Bieber. He's the author of The Heebie-Jeebies at CBGB's, A Secret History of Jewish Punk, talking about so many of the bands that came up, the Ramones, Lou Reed, the Dictators. If you have any memories of your punk rock days and you want to weigh in, give us a call, 813-755-6562, or you can email us at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Something you referred to, Stephen, given so many of its early participants were Jewish, what do you make of some of the punk movement's controversial appropriation of Nazi imagery? You interviewed Sex Pistols manager Malcolm McLaren, again, also Jewish. What did he have to say about that?
Well, Malcolm McLaren was a situationist. That kind of art movement that used kind of surreal happenings to make political statements. So he had this clothing store. It was all kinds of, called Saks in London. And he wanted a band that would kind of be an organ for causing trouble. He originally wanted Richard Hell, who's Richard Myers, half Jewish, and Sylvain from the New York Dolls. Sylvain Mizrahi is his real name, Isaac Mizrahi's cousin, Jewish, to be in it. And they couldn't leave New York. So he got the next best thing, Irish kids like Johnny Rotten and, outsiders. And the whole thing was it was like rap with the N-word. It was reappropriating this Nazi imagery to undermine it, to make fun of it, to mock it. And that was really the bottom line. And it wasn't really just Malcolm. I mean, it was, a lot of the folks who were in that scene. And even if you go beyond the scene a little bit before, you see the appearance of lots of World War II German imagery in rock, Led Zeppelin, and Blue Oyster Cult had a song, Hot Rails in the Sun, which was all about, indirectly about the trains to the camps. Big influence on the Ramones, at least on Tommy Ramone. And it was just, it was in the air. They grew up as kids during the Eichmann trial. And the Eichmann trial, 62, 63, it was really when people became aware of the Holocaust. It had kind of been a thing people didn't want to talk about after the war, kind of like COVID now, right? Nobody really wants to think about it anymore. But with that trial, it became in the news, and in New York City, it was aired live every day, like a soap opera in which the people were turned into soap. So these kids grew up with that, and they were justifiably horrified, and just were had that preoccupation. I think that either consciously and unconsciously came out in the music and in the image of punk.
Well, we do have somebody who would like to weigh in on this. It is 813-755-6562. Let us go to the phones right now. Mike is on the phone. And Mike, you actually played at CBGB? Hey, Mike.
Yeah. Hey, how are you?
Good. Tell us your story.
Is this on the air? Or
it is. You are. You are on the air right now.
Yeah. Well, I used to play with a band called The Vores, which was out of the Niagara Falls, Buffalo, New York area.
Okay.
We went down and played at CBGB several times, and Max's Kansas City, back at the height of Punkland, and it was shockingly dirty.
I have heard.
It was just you walked in the place, and it was like, oh my God, and I played, opening act. The other act I know was a band called the Bloodless Pharaohs, and the lead singer was ended up being the Stray Cats. What was his name? Brian Setzer.
Okay,
and he
sure.
looked like Paul McCartney, but it was like that. I mean, you'd see celebrities out in the crowd, and that you never thought would be there. New York, I mean, it's just like that. Sometimes you just run into people, but it was strangely weird. And the other thing is, I mean, I played a lot of bands. Usually your sets are, you play 3 or 4 hours, not straight, but you play for the evening. There you played for like 20 minutes, and that was it. And then some other band would take over. But it was much smaller than I ever imagined it. The Vores, actually, it's spelled Vores, and if you go to YouTube, you can still see them.
All right, Mike, we're going to look for that. We're going to look for that, but we have to leave it there for now. But we will look for that. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for weighing in. Well, you are listening to Florida Matters, live and local. Stephen Bieber, thank you so much for being with us. Your book is a cultural study, a music analysis of Jewish punk rock, and we've been speaking with you. The book is The Heebie-Jeebies. at CBGB's A Secret History of Jewish Punk. Thanks for being here. Congratulations, by the way, on the 20th anniversary of its release.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. It's hard to believe.
No. Tomorrow on
Thank
Florida
you.
Matters, live and locally, if you've ever wanted to raise backyard chickens, now is your time. We'll be talking about everything you need to know before you get started. And that's our show for today. Florida Matters executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producer, Amelie Horse. Our engineers are Jackson
Trade,
Hunt.
climate, security. To understand major international issues, you need a global perspective. I'm Marco Werman.
And I'm Carolyn Beeler. Deepen your understanding. Listen to the world every weekday.
Hi, I'm Carrie Sheridan. I live in Sarasota, and I cover issues that affect